Hey there, everybody. Welcome to part two of our discussion for Matt Reeves' The Batman. This is part two of the review. Part one is spoiler free. I advise you to check that out first. Even if you've watched the movie, you're probably like, Michael, why do I need to watch the spoiler free review? I already watched the movie. I don't need to know your thoughts on spoiler free stuff. I just need to hear all the spoiler goodness. The reason that you need to watch that is because this review was filmed at the same time. It's one full review that we cut in half to prevent spoilers for the people who haven't seen the movie yet. That video is already out. If you're seeing this, that means the Batman has been released worldwide. You have access to watch the movie, watch the spoiler-free discussion that leads directly into the spoiler-filled discussion. There are things we don't touch on in this review that we already covered in that review. But again, if you want to ignore that part and just go straight into the spoiler stuff, that's fine too. The video's starting now. Catch you guys in the future, or is that the past? I don't know. Anyway, the review starts now. Guys, this movie starts off with Batman narrating, and when he says October 31st,
Yes.
Right.
my heart skipped a beat. I'm like, oh god, we're doing the long Halloween, aren't we?
Yep.
We didn't quite do it, but it got the same vibe, and I'm just like, that right there almost made me pass out in the theater because I'm just like, they already got me. I'm sold. I don't care what happens the rest of this film.
I mean, seriously, he says "hush" in the movie, so I'm like, all right, there's another reference, and then it feels like a blend of Long Halloween, Zero Year One, and a little bit of Hush, a little bit of Ego, just thrown into a pot, boiled down, and this is the movie that we got, and it's a perfect blend.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Like the Long Halloween, I think that's next to like Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns and
Yeah.
The Killing Joke, which I kind of consider more of a Joker story than
Totally.
a true like Batman story. I would say The Long Halloween is probably my favorite of the comics I've read of Batman. And just like you were saying, the moment he said Halloween, I'm like, we're doing this? Like,
What a way to
Yeah.
open the movie, right? Because we're in spoilers, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, we're 100%.
Okay, good.
Spoilers. Say
Right.
whatever you want.
Because I just spoiled. But that beginning, talk about, putting the logo up, as you were saying, Nate, and then just going into this like first-person perspective of the Riddler being this BDSM freak, stalking and staring at these people and attacking. Like, what a way to start the movie. Like, no Batman movie starts this way. And I thought it was just such a interesting, unique, different take to throw there at the beginning, because I was almost like, damn, is this the wrong movie? Like, am I in the wrong movie? Where's Batman? But,
it gets you that like first, what was it, like first minute, and then all of a sudden everything you see the Riddler attack, and then you see Batman, and like when he says they think I'm lurking in the darkness, little do they know I am the darkness. I'm just like, oh gosh, if I had a crush on Robert Pattinson, man, that was when it was born. No, but like the movie is just like, Batman is just straight up scary, and like we mentioned this in the spoiler-free discussion, like the way that they use the score, like we can talk specifics now. Like when he first attacks, like it's very subdued and it's very mellow, but then it just builds and builds, and it sounds more horror-esque. But as the movie keeps going, it sounds very triumphant when we're going from Bruce's perspective. And I just think you take the same theme and you're twisting it and changing it based on the scenario, and I just think it's just masterful work there by everybody involved. But Mike Scorm, it's definitely, I think, my favorite of his so far.
Yeah. You were saying, Leo, about him in the non-spoiler, about him almost being like a slasher figure, and I wanted to comment on that because I wholeheartedly agree. Unlike a lot of the other like Batman movies where he's always portrayed as stoic and everything, this Batman, even though we know it's Batman and he doesn't kill in this movie, and they do remind you about that, he's still super unpredictable. And even in that final battle scene above in the catwalk,
like
is it?
Yeah, like that stadium that they were in. Yeah.
Where he's just like beating the Riddler thug down. Like, he's terrifying.
Yeah, you
Okay,
see, even Selena jumps in that moment. She's just like,
Yeah.
whoa.
Yeah. It's like everybody's surprised. The court's like, whoa, dude, just calm down.
Yeah.
I gotta ask you guys, is that the Bane venom that he
Ooh.
like shot into his leg? Was that?
I don't think so. It was green though. Since you mentioned it,
That's what I was like. Hold on.
Yeah.
I get where you're coming from. I don't think we would introduce it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, what is that? Adrenaline shot, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's probably just adrenaline. There's a lot of minor references, like Catwoman going to Bloodhaven. That was exciting because it's just like, oh snap, we're gonna go watch Robin's parents die, aren't we?
Beginning of the next movie, man.
Oh yeah.
I immediately thought of you, Mike, when they said Bloodhaven. Just because
you felt my fist pump all the way in another state. It's just like, yo, let's go. No, but that's fun. It's just like it's nods like that other movies just don't do, which just shows that they know the Batman source material. Nothing ever has to come from that. I'm not demanding we get a Nightwing or a Robin thing in this franchise, but it's just like to have the awareness to just reference Bloodhaven because it is the next city over from Gotham. That was pretty cool. I showed you guys my notebook in a private group chat of how scatterbrained it was and how awful it was. But I'm just going through my notes here, and I'm like, Batman is narrating. I like how he says that the bat signal is a war. It's not just to call him to Gordon. It's also served as a warning. Like the Batman's on the loose. You guys better hide. And we mentioned this a little bit. I can go into specifics now of like every group of thugs. They're just always looking over their shoulder, and they're all throughout the city, and you don't know which one he's gonna catch. And I just thought that was wonderfully framed. Again, it goes into that like that horror movie element of like when he emerges from the shadows, it's like, oh, it's like those Arkham games where it's like, okay, he's here. We're about to get our arms broken. What were your guys' thoughts on like the action in this movie? Because it's not a lot of it, but do you think it was done pretty well?
I did. I really liked some of the action. Kind of, especially in the third act, kind of reminded me of like the Arkham games, like where he was hanging the guys, the Riddler cronies from like the bleachers. I was like, oh, I did that all the time, like the Arkham games.
Yeah.
Like, I was thinking a lot about that. It was a very different style of fighting than I think we've seen in any Batman movie before. I also thought Catwoman's fighting style, to me, again, about Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman possibly outshining Robert Pattinson. I just loved her fighting. I loved everything about that character. Yeah. I hope if we do get that spinoff with Catwoman, and I'm not complaining about not enough action, but I would like a little more, Catwoman kicking ass and everything.
Yeah, she was very much like kind of had like a kickboxing, very slide and sleep, like lots of uses of kicks. Loved her fighting style a lot. I'm sure there's going to be some complaints about no whip. I really don't care about her not having the whip. But what I liked about Batman's style,
I think they referenced it at least once, right? I'm pretty sure she
has it like before the chase scene, so she's got it that one time.
That's what we get. There we go.
What I like about it is that Batman, obviously you can tell he's trained, he's beating these guys up, but he's not pulling these punches yet. Like he's like straight up like just ramming into guys. And I think that's the way you do like a year two Batman, right? This is the beginning. How do I, exercise and exude fear without necessarily having to be a villain per se? You know what I mean? It's just really well done. But I referenced it in the earlier review. Man, that chase scene was absolutely epic. Like when he's just like, I got you, and then boom, up in the air as the Penguin's car goes, and the Batman's just walking toward him, looking like worse than Ghostface. I mean, it's just so well done. The action is really good. If you're going by like a hand-to-hand combat standards, is it the best? Maybe not compared to some Marvel movies which focus more on that. But I think there's room for that to grow, especially if you get another Batman movie, you get a series, spin-off series. You can definitely dive a lot more into the action, but I think this was just kind of like an appetizer to what's going to become the main course of this entire universe. But yeah, I like the action. I will say, might be a little controversial. I will say, Ben's Batman, the way that action was filmed was unfreaking real. And I will say that was better than this, action-wise. I'm not going to say the movie, but the action definitely.
Well, I mean,
that's an aged Batman who's definitely been through hoops and hollers for years and years, whereas this is Batman year 2. So
yeah,
definitely. It's interesting because I might take a little heat on this, but Batman's fighting style is just not the most interesting to me. He's usually the biggest dude in the room until he's fighting somebody like Bane or Killer Croc. So it's like he's just gonna one-shot most people he comes in contact with because he's fighting like petty thugs unless he's going against like a Ra's al Ghul or something like that. I feel like you can really get characters to shine with Catwoman, with Robin, right? Of them being smaller, having to use acrobatics and kicks and all these other tricks to take down their opponent. Whereas Batman, he can just walk up to a guy, sock him, over. So I feel like the movie was reflective of that, of like, yeah, Batman's better than everybody he's fighting. So we don't have to have this crazy action sequence where it's just like, yeah, he's just gonna punch him. They're gonna get knocked out. The end.
Yeah, I love when he breaks into the club and just takes those thugs out and end on the bleachers. That's really awesome too. Yeah, Batman, I mean, he's a force to be reckoned with, and this just like hits the nail on the head with that. Like you were saying, Mike, he just grabs dudes and knocks them out, like straight up just lays them out on the ground.
He's really like the heavy.
Yeah.
Really, he's just this big, strong, brooding billionaire dude who has a bat suit. He can just knock anybody out. One punch.
Which is funny because you remember the controversy of Robert Pattinson's too skinny. He's not working out for Batman. And it's just like, this dude is like, he's not Ben Affleck size, but like this dude is pretty big.
Yeah.
And he's bigger than everybody else here. So got the job done. Nate, was there any specifics that you wanted to dive into? Because this is a 3-hour movie. I'm sure my notes are reflective of everything you guys have.
I had one small nitpick, and I love this movie, but I feel like when this movie is on HBO Max, Film Twitter is going to get into a frenzy knocking on this scene. But during the Riddler's live stream, you see all those hearts going up and all the comments and everything. It didn't bother me as much. Sometimes when movies like try to tackle like internet culture, I think it almost comes off as a little cheesy and not as intimidating. That's a small nitpick. I did not have that detract on any of like my score of the overall movie, but I could see like a more hoity-toity critic being like, yeah, this movie's awful just because there's people like that out there.
Yeah.
And things like that. We didn't even touch on yet. I love Jeffrey Wright in this movie, just as Commissioner Gordon. It kind of reminded me a lot of what Gary Oldman did with that character, where he's really the only truly pure person there. Yeah. And he's just something about his voice and his charisma made me really drawn to him. And he was just the perfect choice to fit into this universe. I know we were talking about the Gotham PD show. Is it confirmed he's going to be in that?
I don't know. I'm gonna fact check that right
I would hope so.
He's the only draw. If for me, if he's not in it, I don't care.
Because you saw the rest of that, the Gotham PD was just awful, except Gordon. So it's not like if they make that show out of that, it's like, who would I root for without Gordon?
That's one thing that. It's a nitpick for me is that we have also I just pulled it up. He is in talks. He was in talks as of 2 days ago, according to Screen Rant.
Okay.
So hopefully
he's gotta be involved with that.
Yeah,
there's just no draw.
But one of my gripes, and that's why it's not a perfect 10 out of 10, is that we have all of these amazing characters. Like there's not a main character that I dislike, but what does Gordon really do in this movie? I want to give him, Alfred, even Selina to an extent, a little bit more. And it's like, I'm asking for more in a 3-hour movie. That's not a bad thing at all. But it's like, I don't know. I wanted more from Gordon because what's his deal? What's his relationship with this version of Batman? It runs into that issue of you're not doing the origin because it's been done to death, but I still want to know how we got here. How did we get to year 2? To where he's calling him to come into a crime scene. But the rest of the police aren't cool with it, so they're still not comfortable with the Batman thing. And it's like, how did we get to that point? I wish we got a little more interaction between the two so I can understand their dynamic and relationship. It's not that big of a gripe though. It's a small thing. It doesn't affect like the overall structure or plot of the movie. It just makes me have to jump through some mental hoops, some mental gymnastics to be like, I know Gordon, I know what their relationship is. I just don't know how we got there in this story.
I did like the scenes though when they're almost like working side by side, and there was like one of like the only bits of like dark, really dry humor in the movie was with the finger, the thumb, just them on the computer.
Yeah,
Like, I liked their dynamic. I would, as you said, like to have seen like more of the origin, not like an origin in its full, but like an origin of, you know, how he got to really trust Batman because no one else does. Speaking of underused, though, we just brushed upon this in the non-spoiler, but Andy Serkis as Alfred. There's that scene where you see Bruce in the car yelling and calling his manor, and then Alfred just going through the letters. Oh no, there's a bomb in there. And like the one lady answers the phone, it's like, yeah, there was a terrible accident. And it's like, it cuts to him getting like blown up. And I just really wished we got more out of Alfred in this movie. I know a lot of the movies have really played on like Bruce and Alfred's dynamic. The Dark Knight really definitely did that with Michael Caine and Christian Bale's takes on the characters. And even somewhat of, not like too much, but Jeremy Irons and Ben Affleck, you got their dynamic enough from even those little bits of screen time. Whereas this, it really only like brushed upon it, except for that one scene when they were in the hospital and Alfred like kind of unloads that onto him about his dad's brushes with Falcone and everything like that. Like, I like Andy. I thought he was a good choice for Alfred. I just kind of wanted to see a little more. He almost felt a little wasted. Like, you get an actor like Andy Serkis, who I know is more known for his mocap roles and everything, but I mean, he's starting to branch out into live action roles, just like in the MCU where he played Claw. And even in, I don't know why this movie popped into my head, but it's one of the only like live action Andy Serkis movies I can think of. But that Seth Rogen movie, The Long Shot.
Oh yeah.
Like,
he's a really talented actor, even out of mocap. And I almost felt like, did you really need to get Andy Serkis for that role of Alfred if you were just gonna use him like that?
Yeah, not enough.
We know why he's here. I mean, he's Caesar.
Yeah.
we get that. But yeah, like that's my thing of like, what was, I think the thing that really kind of annoyed me about that is that we established that Bruce is kind of a dick to Alfred.
Yeah.
And even when Alfred's in the hospital, the first thing Bruce says is like, why didn't you tell him? It's like, dude, he almost died because of you.
Like, dang, dude.
And it's like, I was okay with it until that moment where it's like, Bruce probably like that near-death experience he would realize I need to treat Alfred better. He basically raised me. He basically is my father, even though things aren't perfect. That never really happened. And so it's like, that was frustrating. Again, it didn't ruin it for me, but again, it's like, what's their relationship? Because they're clearly not Caine and Bale or Irons and Affleck. And one thing I'm glad you mentioned that, I'm giving credit to the Snyderverse of like, in the small like 4 scenes Alfred's in, you get it. You get his relationship with Bruce. Whereas in this movie, I'm like, so Alfred doesn't endorse the Batman thing, which makes sense. It's an awful idea when you really think about it.
Yeah.
But Bruce just kind of always brushes it off. He brushes them off. Alfred's the one actually solving this Riddler puzzle for the majority of like the first act of the movie. And then we bench him, and then we bring him back, to get into a fight with him, and then they hold hands and it's over.
I know. I'm like, okay, y'all held hands. There's not really an exchange of like, wow, like you're like a father to me. Like, there wasn't any dialogue or any pivotal moment where he like came to realize like, okay, I did lose my parents, but I've had Alfred here the whole time, and I think it really needed that for Andy Serkis's character, or at least his take on this character. He needed just that moment where he realizes like, this is my dad. Like,
exactly. I don't know why, but for some reason, ever since I got into Batman, I've always had this attachment to the Alfred character because he's almost like the angel on Bruce's shoulder a little bit.
Yeah.
He is, like you said, he's his dad after Thomas Wayne was murdered. And like, you never got that dynamic. You just got him as like, he's in this movie, he's almost just treated like an employee.
He's treated like the butler.
Yeah.
Right. And he's so much more.
Even in Joker, I know that movie's super polarizing and we don't get much Alfred, but you even still kind of get his loyalty to like the Wayne family there. Yeah. Whereas this, it's just like, F you, Alfred, tell me about my parents' history. I don't care that you just almost died for me, because of me, for something you told me not to do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I got it from Alfred's character, like the loyalty, because he did like calm him down and was like, Thomas Wayne isn't a bad man. But there just wasn't that like seal of approval, like that just kind of sign off of like, okay, I lost my parents, but I've had you the whole time. Like you're not just a butler. You're like my dad, older brother, whatever. You're like the parental figure I always needed. It just never went there. Never really went there.
Just pivoting a little bit from here. Did you think he was actually going to die?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like a little bit nervous that they were just like, boom, he's done. I was like, oh. Like when he was driving and he's just like slamming the gas, he's on the phone. I thought Alfred was dead.
Yeah. I definitely did too. And I would have been a little bit kind of ticked off if they just wasted that character completely like that, because we know there's going to be more.
Right.
This movie's going to make money a lot in its opening weekend. I'm curious to see what its legs will be with the kind of movie it is. I assume it will still hold well because nothing else is coming out in March except like that Sandra Bullock movie.
But Turning Red was its only competition, but now that's on Disney Plus.
So I could. There's obviously gonna be more, and it definitely leaves that door open to let us like for sequels to really explore that dynamic more between Bruce and Alfred. But it should have been explored in the first movie.
Yeah, I will say I love. Sorry to totally pivot. I love what this does with like kind of these modern themes of corrupt police.
Yes.
And how it really attacks the justice system and questions what exactly is good justice. Because even Batman like comes super poetic moment when he comes around to that Riddler lackey who says, I'm vengeance. And it's like, oh, maybe this isn't the way I should actually be taking on crime in the city. It really questions just what is actual, like what is on moral standards, what is justice and what is good justice versus going too far. I love what it does with that. And I just like the corruption of like the police and it really just taking some modern themes to it and like bringing it in the movie. Thought was just really well done. Like Matt Reeves, man. Matt Reeves, like give him the second one right now because that was incredible.
Yeah, Matt Reeves did such a great job of making this movie feel relevant with those themes without like forcing them in. It's very natural in a Batman setting, and they also kind of lightly tapped on like misinformation as well with different things with the Riddler, and I just thought he did a great job on commenting on things but not going overboard like we saw in like Joker, things like that. Like
for sure.
Speaking of Joker.
Spoilers,
y'all.
let's get that out the way.
Yeah, I was waiting.
Look, okay. Might be a hot take. I don't think I needed Joker. I think I was totally okay just going Riddler all the way, whatever. But when he was there, I was pretty psyched. The laugh, a little weird, but we got some time with that. I didn't need him, but what a pleasant surprise, right? I mean,
do we know who was playing Joker?
Yeah,
Barry Keoghan.
Oh wow,
yep.
That's what I thought. I wasn't entirely sure.
And see, he was like being all sneaky about it, and I guess his brother said on social media, like, "Congrats to my brother Barry for getting the role." I'm like, oh, way to spoil.
For the YouTube audience, that's Druid from Eternals. If you don't recognize the voice, I didn't love it. I'm going to be honest with you, simply because I think I might just be jokered out.
I get it.
Yeah,
that's why I was like, I didn't need it.
Yeah,
I liked it, pleasant surprise, but didn't need it necessarily.
Yeah, it wasn't offensive. It wasn't bad by any stretch, but it's like we finally got the Riddler. Like, think about it. The Riddler hasn't been in anything since Batman Forever. We finally got the Riddler back in doing something. We finally got Penguin, who hasn't done anything since Batman Returns. But we've had how many Jokers since Batman 89? Like what, 3?
As many Batmans, nearly.
Right.
More than just Batmans, because Joaquin.
Yeah, the solo movie, right.
There's been more Jokers, I think. Batman's hasn't there?
They might be tied, but yeah, like he had a solo movie where Batman wasn't even there. So that tilts the scales even more. And it's like I'd rather you tease Poison Ivy, Mr. Freeze, Clayface, Two-Face, anything. Like I was expecting when we killed the DA to get a Harvey Dent like reference right then and there, but that didn't happen. And I don't know, it just didn't do anything for me. It's like, we set up a Batman movie and we're teasing Joker for a sequel. Where have I seen that before? Christopher Nolan.
Right.
Because I knew it's a new franchise, so I know it's inevitable that you're going to bring the Joker in, and I know he's like integral to the character of Batman. I know some will argue there's no Batman without the Joker, but at the same time, like you said, Mike, I am also jokered out. Like, Batman has probably the best rogues gallery out of any superhero.
Yeah.
Probably only rivaled by Spider-Man. And give us something like, I've always wanted to see Mr. Freeze done right.
Yeah.
Give us a tease to that. Like, that would get me excited. Just seeing Joker again, even though I like Barry Keoghan, it doesn't, like, make me, like, hyped. It's just like, okay.
It's like, I guess we know what we're doing, but I'm not.
Give us Clayface, man. Like, give us these villains that barely see any screen time.
Yeah.
Give us Scarface, Killer Croc. There's so many.
There's so many people.
So many. And, like, even Bane, right? I know we've technically done Bane twice, but, like, the Dark Knight Rises version of Bane is not comic book Bane.
No.
So it's like, you can even make a movie where Bane is the bad guy. Or you can even do what Ben Affleck was going to do and introduce someone like Deathstroke. And it's like,
yes. Yes.
That would have made me more excited. Like, I, again, love this movie to death. I will be there day one. I'll be there early again if Warner Brothers allows me to watch Batman 2.
Warner Brothers literally, they sent me 2 invites to this movie. And I've like, before, I'm like, I'll only see it once before. But it's like, it's on Monday. Well, it'll be past then, but I've been like debating. I'm like, I wonder if I can bring my friend. Just get him into this screening. We see it then and there. Because, even though I know I've been kind of nitpicking a lot in this spoiler review, I can't wait to see this movie again. I really did love it.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to the fan event on Tuesday that AMC is doing. And then there was another invite for a Monday screening, but I was like, I'll go to the IMAX one on Tuesday. And then there's a Wednesday one going on here as well. I'm like, man, they're pumping it out, man. And look, I'm going to be there as much as possible.
I don't blame you at all. So we're in the spoiler section. What were your thoughts on the Roman, Carmine Falcone? This is a character I heard he was in the movie. I didn't think he'd be that important to the plot of this film.
Yeah, I didn't think so either. I thought he
Okay.
served his purpose. I wasn't just like blown away or blown back or anything, but I think he served his purpose really. I was more fixated, I think, on Riddler and Penguin than I was like Falcone. So I
feel like he got more screen time than Penguin, though, didn't he?
Yeah,
He did.
yeah. Oddly enough, and I'm like, if there was really any like spotlight, it kind of got robbed from him, in my opinion. And I like I said, I was fixated on pretty much everyone else. Not that the actor did a bad job or anything, or that he was bad, or that the character was even written poorly. It's just there were just other characters that outshone him.
Yeah.
I definitely thought he did a good job. I used to, because my first exposure to that actor, John Turturro, was the Transformers movies.
Same.
And he was awful in those movies. So before, like, whenever he would show up in movies, when I would be, like, watching before I, like, watch, like, The Big Lebowski and all of his other, like, his good movies, I always was just like, I hate that guy. And, like, here, they kind of almost make him, like, the second villain of the movie more than even Penguin.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very much Penguin is going to take over from, from here on out.
Falcone. Yeah.
And I'm also not like that well versed, like too like in deep with the comics. But how many in the comics? I know it happens like once, but with Catwoman being like the child of Falcone, how is that like always been a thing, or
that is from the Long Halloween?
Okay,
I'm pretty sure. Which I don't think it's like always in like main DC continuity, but that's one of the biggest Batman stories of all time. So they're gonna reference it as much as they can.
Yeah. Well, one of the new original things, right, is I don't know, was Martha in Arkham? Did I miss that?
So yes, actually, that's why like I have a list here of just comic book crap that I just pointed out watching it. It's probably even more. But yeah, Martha going to Arkham, I feel like is a reference to Flashpoint, where
that's
she
what I
becomes
thought.
the Joker, right? And so there's things in the comics that always hint at her having like some mental health issues, and so her going into Arkham is a thing that happened a couple times, but I feel like it's pretty much a major nod to the Flashpoint universe where she becomes the Joker. And
but her actually having it as like the last name, is that like a because like she is right? Because weren't they saying that she's like in Arkham, and it's like, oh, the Waynes and the Arkhams are like the two biggest families. Was she always in Arkham?
Unless I missed something, I thought that that they were just friends with the Arkhams. I didn't think she was a member of that family. I could have missed it. It's a 3-hour movie.
Yeah.
I saw it once.
Amen.
Also, there was a Thomas Elliot reference to Hush. That was awesome. But yeah, like the whole Thomas being dirty and working with the mob, that's a comic book thing that a lot of movies don't touch on because we want to make the Waynes be saints and they're saving Gotham, and that's what the Nolan trilogy taught us, right? And it's like, no, they're just as sleazy as everybody else around this town.
Yeah.
Love that, man.
And I just thought it was, again, it's a different take, but it's still based on a bunch of iconic Batman stories. And so that makes it feel fresh and new, but also you can point and be like, oh yeah, they clearly just got that from this thing over here, which is another iconic Batman story.
I've been meaning to say this because we keep mentioning him, the little reference to him, and going back to like the Joker again. Give us Hush in the sequel.
Yeah,
that would fit
perfectly
with the vibe this movie, and the vibe and the tone. Like that's what I want. I'm sorry, I just had to fire that out.
No, I'm with you. There's like that's the thing though. Batman has so many iconic villains, and like everybody says, Spider-Man, right? I feel like Spider-Man, great villains, but Spider-Man has maybe 10, where Batman has 30 that you can just point to and be like, do that guy for Batman 66, King Tut, he's cool. Why not?
Right. Just some random Calendar Man, bring him in, man. Like just some random.
Exactly, like Calendar Man. Man Bat, if you want to get into mutants and weird crap like that.
Oh, like, I mean, hell, like just go all the way out there.
Yeah, like there's so many things you can do, and you tease Joker again. At least, so we didn't really go into that. I want to just pivot back there. What do you think the history is with that? Because Batman's in year 2. Joker's already in Arkham. Did they fight already, or is he just like an inmate that's going to become the Joker in another story?
I think they fought already. I thought it was kind of implied that, like, he's the more experienced inmate at Arkham. Like, welcome, Riddler, or Ed, whatever.
Yeah.
I think it was kind of implied they already had crossed paths.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was kind of like you were saying, Nate. It was like hey, buddy, you just got here? Well, I've been here before. Like, I went through that whole hoop and holler you went through. Let's band together and take out the Batman together this time. Something kind of like that.
Yeah.
That also could be a reference to Batman 66, where the Riddler and the Joker were pretty much interchangeable because they were pretty much the same character. Again, random comic book trivia that I wrote down in that sketch notebook.
Ooh, pretty synonymous, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a running joke with Batman writers. It's like, his jokes, his riddles, they're the same thing. Who cares? It's a meta joke. So as far as Riddler's origin, we can finally talk about that. What were your thoughts on like how he ties into this whole corruption thing, and like Bruce starts to see that the system is just straight up broken. He can't punch his way out of this. His family pretty much created the Riddler, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't intentional, obviously, but I just want your guys' opinions and thoughts on, like, do you think that revelation was kind of a sympathetic villain, or do you just think like he killed so many people? I don't care. We're 2 hours into this movie. Who cares?
I think he kind of took that dark road already. You know what I mean? I don't really think there's like any sympathizing to be had necessarily. Like, I think he kind of already went down that hard road of like, I'm a villain. Like, there's no like, if he were maybe like in between and hadn't committed the crimes, then yeah. But I think it's kind of like, yes, the system did. This is what the system can do to someone. And the Batman realizes when he unmasks one of his thugs and the thug says vengeance, he realizes that even his own system and way of fighting justice is not correct either. So, no, I didn't really have any sympathy for him, but I think it just added so many more layers to that character.
Yeah.
I will agree with that. Like, he's not sympathetic. Even when it shows that picture of him as a kid with, like, the glasses and everything, immediately he's like that kid you wouldn't want to cross paths with on the playground. Or just, be nice to for later purposes. Like, he's never, I didn't think he was painted as a sympathetic figure at all, but more just something that the corruption created.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I get that. I'm not sure what they wanted us to take away from revealing that. Like, I guess maybe it was just to like mess with Bruce's psyche a little bit and make him question his own motives or even his own childhood, right? Of like, I did like how they pointed out, it's like, yeah, you're an orphan. That's terrible. But everybody else has had it way worse than you. You live in a mansion. You have servants who are still here with you to this day. I'm glad they called that out at least. Like, Bruce, chill out a little bit, man.
Yeah, and I think you're hitting it right on the head there. I think that's why they revealed that, because it's like, yeah, Bruce was in the same circumstance as these other people, but yeah, he was born in the rich and fame. Like, I mean, he didn't have the same upbringing, and so somebody who wasn't, this is how the corrupt system could make them become like the Riddler.
Exactly. Like, I just forgot what I was going to say. Sorry.
It's like same circumstance. It's like same instance of being the orphan, but different circumstances led them both down separate paths.
What I was going to say is, Batman's whole motive is he's an orphan and his parents were killed right in front of him. But think about every other orphan on the planet.
Yeah, exactly.
I got it.
You still got it good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's why, like, we can talk about what you guys want to see in the sequels, but I feel like that's the perfect time to introduce a Robin character of like, hey, I understand now. I feel like the best way to make a difference is take this kid in, make sure he doesn't become like me, and it kind of can lead into that Batman and Robin dynamic. I don't know if that's where Reeves wants to take it, but I feel like he kind of set up Bruce's maturity and his growth in this film to naturally lead into a story like that for like Batman 2 or whatever they're going.
I would say, like, the Batman at the beginning of this film, obviously he's not fit to take on a Robin. That's not someone you would want around a kid. But
Exactly.
I just don't know if they're going to bring in Robin or not, because, I mean, he's not really been, like, brought into, like, the movies besides, you know, the Schumacher films. And look how that turned out, and those films were so goofy, but the Nolan films, except, like, the Joseph Gordon-Levitt character being named Robin, it was, like...
That was a nod. That was, you know...
Yeah. Whereas, I would be curious to see how, like, a Robin... like a Dick Grayson would like fit into all of this.
I feel like that you would have to introduce Dick Grayson and not the Robin element until maybe like the third movie or a spin-off movie. So like he and Alfred can take the kid in, and then at the end, post-credit, whatever you want to do, he finds the Batcave. And then you can do a time jump to where he's older, so he's not a 10-year-old being Robin.
Yeah.
Or you could just spin off Nightwing from there and be like 6 years later.
Yeah, do you guys think we need to go Robin? Like, do we even need to have Robin in this universe? Like, and not that, you know, like you were saying, Mike, it's like bring him in, but he's not Robin, and we just go straight to Dick Grayson in the next movie. Or Nightwing. I'm like, I don't know if we even really need him running side by side with this Batman necessarily.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm biased. You know this. I want Robin. Ignoring that, and just like looking at where this film leaves Bruce Wayne. And I said this in my review, which ironically you guys haven't seen yet. I said in my review that this Batman is too isolated, much like comic book Batman was so isolated to where it's making him kind of crazy. And so the reason Robin's introduced in the first place, aside from wanting kids to read the book, is that they needed somebody there to keep Bruce sane, to keep him centered, right? And Nate, you mentioned earlier, Alfred's kind of that, but Bruce having the responsibility of this child makes him grow up. And I feel like for this guy's personal growth in this story, I feel like a Robin would work. You can't just do, you know, he's wearing his leotard and he's fighting bad. That's the age of 10 years old. You can't do that. But you can still introduce you can introduce the character of Dick Grayson, have him become Robin at like Spider-Man's age, like 15, 16.
No tights either. No tights. You don't need all that classic look.
You even see like Bruce's like when he keeps staring at that kid, the son of the mayor.
Yeah, what's that
his
about?
Almost attachment to, you know, childhood.
Yeah, I think he's the Robin of this universe. I'm just throwing that out there. I think that kid is the Robin or a Robin in the future.
Maybe, but like I was telling you guys before, off camera, is that entire setup was like Bruce empathizes with this kid. So if you make the opening of the next movie, Bruce is at the circus and he sees the flying Graysons fall to the ground. It's like that, boom, done. We already established that he has a heart for children, for orphans. That's even why he views Nashton differently. I knew I was gonna mess that up one day. I don't know.
Why did they
it was
change
too on
that?
the nose.
I guess.
Enigma. Like that's like one of the punniest Batman names out there.
It kind of annoyed me because there's this bit where we see he has two different identities. And it's like, why didn't you just make Enigma the fake identity and make Nashton the real identity? Boom, best of both worlds. Minor nitpick. Guys, I know you got to get going soon. Was there anything else you wanted to cover and hit before we wrap this one up?
Oh, I just love this movie, and I need another watch ASAP, dude. Like, just even talking about it, I'm like, I just want to go through it another time just to soak it in. Like, I feel like I got that first watch and I loved it. And I'm like, I want one more to really soak it in and just digest it, man. I need one more. I want one more viewing.
Yeah. I cannot wait to discuss this. This has been amazing being able to discuss it with you guys, because outside of like right after the screen, I haven't been able to talk to anybody about any of this, and it's been hell. So I can't wait to like speak to like fellow fans or even people who didn't like the movie, just discussing it. And like, I really think this movie, more than even a lot, and I love the MCU. Sorry for kind of dragging it here, but like, I almost feel like it's more discussion worthy than like a movie like, Eternals or Shang-Chi, where it's just like,
Shang-Chi is a movie you just watch. It's like, that was great. I loved it. But then you just don't really talk about it again.
Yeah.
Like, I remember I got my parents to watch Shang-Chi on Disney Plus, and I wanted to talk to them about it, but I couldn't think of anything. But like, thinking of this is going to HBO Max in April.
Yeah.
Like, making them watch this, I don't know if my parents fall asleep during like any movie, if they will or not, but it's just a movie. Anybody who sees it, like any friend of mine who sees it, I want to talk about it with them. Like,
yeah,
there's so much.
I thought of something, and I can't believe we've gone this long without mentioning it. I mentioned this to Leo the day I saw it. Riddler wins.
Yep.
That's such a crazy ending of like Batman straight up loses. He couldn't outsmart the Riddler. Mm-hmm. And not only Batman and Gotham have to deal with that, and they have to grow from that and recover. Like, Gotham is half underwater right now.
Yeah.
It's just such a crazy, crazy ending. And I don't even know where you go from there. Is it like a no man's land situation? Like, I know I'm speaking in comic book terms. I don't even know.
That's the end of that is the beginning of no man's land. So it's that's the natural next step.
Sorry to get back into the movie, but like, when we hear about like those bombs being set around like is it on the boats, right?
It's
around boats.
It's like around the border, yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know.
I was just like, okay, are we gonna spend like another like 30 minutes of him just trying to stop each of the bombs or anything? And no. It like completely subverted any expectation I had.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's just crazy to me. Like, they just went there. And Batman, it's funny because Riddler's plan was never to like kill Batman, or I mean, I guess he wanted to kill Bruce Wayne and he didn't get to do that, but like, he didn't want to kill Batman, to kill Gordon, blah, blah, blah. He killed the people he targeted aside from Bruce, and he blew up the dams. And he successfully did all of that. He wanted to leak information about the Waynes, about the Roman, and he just straight up won. Like, even Thanos didn't win as much as the Riddler did, because that got reversed.
Yeah.
Crazy
You
stuff.
Can't really reverse the town being flooded in this kind of universe.
There's no Superman flying down in the save this universe. Like, nope.
Superman's not reversing time. Doctor Strange isn't pushing the water back like in Endgame. It's just Gotham's underwater now. And I like the shot of Batman reaching out and helping people. And they're like reciprocating that. Awesome. Because earlier he was trying to help and people were like backing away in fear. So the ending of this,
of the people.
Right. He's no longer just vengeance. He's, like I texted you, Leo, he's the silent guardian, right? The watchful protector. He's now the Dark Knight, which is epic. But I'm not going to hold you guys up any longer. I know you got other stuff to do. So, Leo, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me,
Where can people find you?
Well, thanks for having me, and it was good chatting with you and Nate about the Batman, guys. I can't wait to talk about this more and more. I just, the more I talk about it, the more I'm like, I need that second viewing, and I sure can't wait. But you guys can find me over at Geekly Goods on YouTube. We'll have my Batman review up tomorrow with a little bit more Batman content coming up as well this week. And then if you're on any social media platform, that's Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, or TikTok, I'm at Leo Rydel GG. Thanks again for having me, Mike. This was awesome, man. Thank you.
And then you can find me at on Twitter at Nate Knows Movies. I'm also on Letterboxd at Nate Richard. I'm also have my movie blog that you can read. I'm starting back up that you can read my 1,565 word Batman review. It's the longest review I've ever written. You could also find my words on Collider and my other reviews on Film Yap. And also on my YouTube channel, you can find me at Nate Richard. I have a video coming up in March. Well, I guess this video will be posted in March. By the end of March, that Mike, you know about, my awards video, The Houndies, is coming up. So it's my take on the Oscars. So
it's already
that's
better
to
than
look
the
forward to.
Oscars. I tell you that
Yeah.
right now. Oh yeah. Thanks again, guys, for joining me. I'm gonna have all of your channels, all your Batman reviews, everything's gonna be linked down below for everybody to check out. And yeah, we are starting a podcast series. You guys are kind of like in the pilot. The Chatter After and Film Session is a monthly series where we're talking movies all the time. So I want you guys to join us again for the next movie we review. So much Batman coverage here on the channel, so stay tuned for that. Take care.